boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights and keep the popcorn coming, because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights. Fright Fights.
Tyler, listen to what this motherfucker did to me today. Or not today, the other day. So the other day, we're at work, and I'm with a customer, and we're sitting under a table, I'm doing my stuff, and I go back to the inventory room to get a device, and I push open the door, and Mike hollers at me from like across the room. He's like, "Hey, Lax." I'm like, I turn around, I stop what I'm doing, like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And he's like searching his pockets. He's like, and he just goes, flips me the bird. I'm like, fuck you, Mike.
That's hilarious.
It was serious too. You were
like, yeah, dead serious, like across from the room, just whoop.
That's so funny. It's actually funny because like 3 days ago, Felicia was like, "Get my wallet," and I was like, "Where the hell's your wallet?" And she was like, "It's in my purse." I was like, "Okay," so I go get her purse, and I'm like, "I can't find it in here. I can't find it anywhere." And she's like, "Just bring it to me." So I bring it in. I'm like looking through it, and I just like reach, and I'm like, "Oh, here it is." I go, and she's like, "You're an ass." She's good. So we're talking about our experiences tonight.
Yeah, so I thought that since we're doing a show based on haunted houses and scary locations and stuff like that, the best thing to do is to just talk about experiences we've had ourselves.
Oh, I was talking about sexual experiences.
Yeah,
that's yeah, exactly what I was talking about.
The ghost touched me.
You know, there's actually shows about that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Have you
Stop.
Chris, have you never seen Touched by an Angel? All right, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of Fright Fights Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tyler, and joining me is Chris and Mike. How's it going, guys?
What's up, everyone?
What's up, everyone? Been a minute.
Got a great show planned for tonight, everybody. We have, not only are we going to be doing our battle at the end of the show where we're going to battle haunted house films or scary location films, but we also decided that we're going to talk a little bit about some scary experiences that all of us have had in the real life. Some either ghost experiences, just weird things that happen on different locations that we've been to, or just weird places in general we've visited. Just thought it'd be a really cool idea to kind of go hand in foot with our haunted house topic for the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I was gonna say nothing scarier than my ex-wife. I tell you, that was the most frightening situation. I'll stop. I'm just joking.
Hey, I'm not far behind you, Mike.
Yeah.
With that one.
You've had a really bad experience with Mike's ex-wife too?
I did.
I
was actually in the relationship with him. It was completely open, right, Mike?
I heard she was like the like a shareable size, so she was very shareable.
Spread that ghost love around, aren't we?
I'm pretty stoked on the experience part, though. There's a couple different situations for myself, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll talk on that.
Well, kick us off, Mike. What kind of experience?
Yes. So growing up, obviously into movies, and
he got
my
touched
father.
by a ghost.
I got touched by the ghost. Get the out of here, Lax. But no, I'm sure you have all been to this location before. But the Keith Albee, downtown Huntington, the old Keith Albee Theater. I was probably 10, 11 years old, and I absolutely hated going to the restroom because you had to walk downstairs. It was almost like underneath the theater. And I'll never forget, I was going to a late show. God, I don't remember what it was. Like I said, I was 10, 11 years old. And, at this time, my dad let me go by myself. So I went downstairs, and there's one little area where it's kind of like a sitting area before you get into the restroom. And there's like a closet. And man, like when you're using the bathroom, that area is kind of open. So it's always like an eerie feeling because you can hear the footsteps up above you, people walking to like, the concession stand, getting a drink or whatever. But you can also hear footsteps leading down to the restroom. But I was using the restroom. I was at the stall, and I heard the door like open, and I was like, man, that's really weird. Maybe somebody's just going into that closet. But when I finished up, I walked back into the little seating area, and the door that was like closed was half open. Now, still to this day, it gives me goosebumps talking about it now. Did somebody kind of just was playing with me, walk down the steps, open up the door, and run back up? I don't know, but I would have heard the footsteps that would have led down and led back up because, like I said, it was very easily to hear the squeaky footsteps or the stairs, rattle and shake and so what. But still to this day, I was frightened, and it was one of those frightened moments where like you couldn't move. You're just like, I just stood at the door, half open, and by that time, somebody else came downstairs, and it kind of woke me up. I'll never forget that moment. So that was moment number one for me. Keith Albee, door was shut when I went into the restroom. Door was half open when I came back into the little like sitting area. I'll never forget that moment in my life. Still to this day, it terrifies me.
That's insane. I've only been in the Keith Albee in Huntington a couple times. It has that very like spooky kind of aesthetic to it anyway, because it's like this old 1920s theater. So just to have that setting and to know it's haunted to begin with already kind of gives me the creeps.
Yeah. I was gonna say there was supposedly like a murder that happened in the women's restroom like years ago. But I mean, I don't know how true that is. I couldn't get any confirmation on that or any facts about that. So that's kind of like maybe a myth, word of mouth. But just overall in general, that theater, just the vibes it gave off was just eerie. I guess just an eerie sense of, eerie feeling that, when you would go downstairs or just walk into the Keith Albee by itself, it was just scary. Still to this day. I mean, there are plays that happen in the Keith Albee, but I haven't been in years. I haven't been since there was an actual movie. So that's been a long time.
Oh yeah. I think see, I've been thinking about my personal experiences with ghosts, and I can't say I've necessarily had like a straight up paranormal experience, but I have had things that seems extremely close to that. And the one that really still kind of haunts me to this day, and I always think about, and I swear this story is true. It sounds almost like movie like because it's not even like it's hard to believe. But I was actually in Williamsburg, Virginia. And obviously the history of Williamsburg is extremely, it's been 500 years of like insane deaths. And, it was actually like at one point, it's like the Supreme Court even was basically there. And they would pretty much execute people every moment of the day, like hourly. And there's been millions and millions of deaths over the years. So in true fashion of myself, I went on a ghost tour because I always try to go on ghost tours when I'm in these places. And it was one of the more intricate ones. So they actually used real ghost hunting equipment. And we walked around Colonial Williamsburg. And there was basically several houses we visited, but the one house that really, really, really like stood out during this trip was I forgot who it was exactly, but it was known as like the most haunted house in Williamsburg, like the most. and there had been multiple deaths, multiple apparitions seen, so on and so forth. So we all get there, and I'm holding this device. I actually looked it up to make sure it wasn't completely messing it up, but it's a multi-channel radio. And basically what it does is it scans through radio channels like super quickly. So it picks up on like different words that's being said throughout the radio channels in the area. And these radio channels kind of like piece together words, like sometimes even sentences if it lines up just right. And what it is the entity, the apparition, the ghost, it's supposed to be able to use energy from that radio source to piece together sentences and words to speak to you. And I was holding this device, and we was with the tour guide because obviously they knew a lot about the history and all the stuff that had happened. So I was holding this device as he was telling the history outside of this house, and we got closer to where we were right by the window. And he told us that next to that window there was a demonic force. That it was confirmed it wasn't a ghost. They had like multiple priests. They've had multiple people. They said they had one person that went in that was like all big and bad and acted like he wasn't scared. And apparently he got like scratched and everything. Like they had like documented proof of this. And I know it sounds crazy, but the moment he started talking about it, the moment we got closer to that window where that demonic force was supposed to be, my two-way radio started going crazy. And it starts like going through every single channel. It starts like not making any sense at all. And then it just shuts off and goes completely dead. And the tour guide, I told the tour guide, I was like, my radio went dead. And he comes over, he's like, I don't know, that's weird. It was on a full charge. We charged them before every single tour. Let me see what's going on. He tries to turn it back on. He tries to mess with it. And he threw his hands up after like 5 minutes and said, I don't know, I've never seen this before. It's absolutely just dead. And he said, I'm sorry about that. And I was like, oh, well, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. Obviously this is going to be a demonic force, obviously, right? And he was like kind of laughing it off. But truly, I knew what that really probably was. And while I didn't necessarily see anything, I do have like pictures. I don't know if it'll even come across, but like outside of this house, you can kind of see like they had like, let me try to like zoom in for you guys. They even have like, I got like this little orb. There was no lights at all there. So it's just a random like orb floating. So I did pick up on some random stuff there. And a lot of people felt this strange energy. And just hearing the stories alone was enough to really creep you out to know you were in that presence of a potential demonic force. And the validation that we needed on the trip was obviously, my radio went completely dead the moment they started talking about it. So that was pretty chilling. That's probably my most terrifying experience I've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Mine has to deal with a place that I visited as well. So here in Kentucky, there is quite a few places that are known as haunted locations, and one of the world's scariest locations, or one of the scariest, or should I say, one of the most haunted locations in the United States is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. And I've visited that place multiple times. I've done half tours, full night tours, everything. And there was one particular moment from one of the visits that I did that really, really creeped me out and really scared me. And on the third floor, well, if people doesn't know what Waverly Hills is, it is a tuberculosis hospital that they would take people that was diagnosed or on the verge of dying or just random things and they didn't know what was going on with them. They put them in the hospital, and when someone died, there was this giant tunnel that was attached to the building. And they would basically just, when someone would die from tuberculosis, they would just dump their body down that tunnel, and it would go out away from all the patients so that nobody else would see them being wheeled out or ambulances coming in. And they would just, like a hearse or something would come by once a day and just gather up all the bodies that had died and take them away. And there was, I believe they said that there was over 50,000 people who had died at that hospital. And the show Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventurers, both have been there visiting that location multiple times. There was a movie film there about it as well called Death Tunnel. But from my visit that I had, we were visiting the third floor, and this was probably around like midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning. And the third floor is the building itself is kind of like a curve. So the center of the building is completely pitch black. No light comes in from that area. And what they do is there's no power, there's no electricity to the building. At least whenever we were there was not. So they would send you up to the third floor and they say this is where you see shadow people. So if you look down the hallways, it looks like there are shadows of people walking from side to side back across the floor. So back across the going from room to room. And you can't really judge for yourself unless somebody is at the other end to kind of know that there's nobody down there. So they asked for a volunteer. And of course, me being the one who was interested in all that, sure, why not? I'll go ahead and do it. I'll walk down there. So the tour guide says, okay, just go ahead and take a walk. And whenever I tell you to stop, just stop, turn around, and hold your arms straight out. That way, everybody that's back here will know exactly what you are. They'll see your outline, and they can see stuff that will move between us and you. And I was like, okay, sure. So I'm walking, and I mean, I'm probably walking for like a good 2 minutes down this hallway. And I mean, abandoned building, right? Like it was already scary enough. And finally he says, stop. And I'm in the middle where this curvature is. So on my end, it's just pitch black behind me and pitch black in front of me. I just so happened to stop in the middle of this doorway of this room that's an open room. There's no windows or anything. It's just an open room. And I'm just stopped and standing there with my arms straight out. Now, as they're down there talking, I could hear them talking about like, hey, do you all see the shadows moving and all this? And people are asking questions like, hey, is he moving? Because I see something. And I'm just standing there completely still. And I feel like this presence, almost like somebody was in the room that was standing next to me. And it felt like somebody was walking out of the room. Like, you know, that feeling you get when someone enters a room or leaves a room, just that presence of someone leaving or coming in. And it was that presence. So as I'm standing in the doorway, it feels like someone is getting closer and closer to where they exit out of that room, come straight toward me. And obviously I can't see anything. It's pitch black. And then the front side of my body goes straight cold. And the back side of my body goes straight cold while the front stops being cold. It was as if someone moved through me and went just right through me and just continued walking down the hallway. And I had an immediate cold chill. Like I shivered, like I could feel my whole body shiver.
Oh man.
And then right when that happened, the feeling of the presence in that room was gone. It was like nobody was there anymore. And whenever the tour guide hollers for me to come back, I walked back down. I told him what had happened. And he said, that's really strange that you say that, because whenever right before we called you back, people were claiming down here that they were seeing shadows moving right where you were standing at. And I couldn't explain it. I have no idea what happened or what I felt or what I saw, but it was really, really scary.
Dude.
It's creepy, man. Like, I don't know how I would not volunteer. Sorry.
Well, it's what's crazy is like if you're from Appalachia or the Appalachian area, and you obviously know Waverly Hills, and it's like this kind of like looked upon thing by everybody in Appalachia. It's like being, the most scary place, really. And it's crazy because the body shoot, I remember reading something, it was like, the reason that they would use that body shoot and they would take all the bodies at nighttime to the hearse was pretty much because they were trying to hide how many people were like truly dying. So like they don't know, like they say like 50 million possibly. They were saying, it might be like 50,000, not 50 million, but 50,000 people. But they were like claiming like 10 to 14,000, and it's like insane to know like 35,000 people could be completely unaccounted for or something like that. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and if you do research, if you look into it, the building itself has, I mean, over 100 different types of cases of paranormal activity. We're talking like almost every room or every floor has some type of story associated with it. There's like stories associated with a pregnant nurse that had thrown herself or her baby down the elevator shaft. So like when you go to the elevator shaft, you're supposed to hear the baby cries and you're supposed to see the nurse. And every little room has a story behind it. And if you go to this place and you go to this tour and you hear all these different stories and being at this location, it's very, very, very cool and weird to experience.
Oh yeah.
Man.
I mean, you could even just like if you YouTube it and see it, even it's insane.
Yeah, there's a documentary about the entire paranormal experiences there. It's done by the Booth brothers. It's called The Ghosts of Waverly Hills. Spooked. It's called Spooked, The Ghosts of Waverly Hills. Excellent documentary, really, really creepy. If you get a chance to check it out, I highly recommend to watch it.
Nice. I'll have to check that out because I like the lore behind Waverly Hills. So definitely. But I'm sure the viewers may be wondering why we're telling the ghost stories, and that's because we have a really cool topic tonight. It's kind of like basically how the house could have its own kind of character in the film. Haunted houses, ghost stories, all that kind of stuff. So look forward to that later. But before, I thought we could chat a little bit about the movies that we saw this week.
Yeah.
What all you guys checked out? Who wants to kick us off?
Well, Tyler, I know that you watched a movie that I'm very interested in hearing your opinion on it. It is a very stupid but fun, cheesy 80s horror film. It's called The Invisible Maniac. I've loved this movie since I was little and renting it from the video store. And you had never seen it. So I'm curious, what did you think? You had just watched it.
Yeah, so I got the new Vinegar Syndrome transfer, so I thought it would be the perfect chance to check it out because I knew that you love this movie and you always told me you did, so I knew I needed to watch it.
Please tell me you like this movie.
I mean, the thing is like, okay, I don't even know if I could give it a review because it's so like goofy. And I was watching it, and I at first I was like, wow, this is just really, really, really missing it for me. But something really something happens halfway through where he becomes what's his, I forgot the guy's name in it, but he becomes invisible finally as the killer. And that's when it gets really cool. And that's when it gets interesting. And I actually was watching one of the bonus features, and they interviewed the director, and he was talking about how it was meant to be completely like oblivious, just fun, like goofiness. It wasn't really supposed to be, an Oscar winning picture by any means. So it was very self-aware. I appreciate that about it. I thought it was funny. The sandwich scene is still my favorite personally. The guy, he like kills the guy with the sandwich. And I think it was goofy in the way that Jack Frost was. Like it felt like Jack Frost not being Jack Frost. So
yeah. So it's like you said, it's definitely self-aware. So the movie itself is basically a Invisible Man ripoff, but just done with a very low budget, very cheesy self-awareness to it. And it's about this guy who is a insane doctor who's put away in a mental institution for being insane. And when he finds a way to escape. That's the beginning of the film, as he escapes, and he creates this serum to make himself invisible. And so, what a better way to take advantage of being invisible than to go into a high school and take advantage of being able to spy on the high school cheerleaders. That's what he does. So like as a kid, I was watching this as a kid, and you're talking about like watching the most cheesiest, sleaziest
oh my God, Chris.
film you can think of as a kid. It was so
kid.
much fun. And what makes it fun is that when he's invisible, it's not like you still see an outline of him where they just say he's invisible. No, there's no one there, and all the actors are acting as if someone is. So when someone's getting choked by something, they are literally holding something up to them or reacting as if they were getting choked with no one there. And it's so freaking hilarious. And they do an amazing job at how bad it is. But bad in a good way.
Also, as Chris said, he watched this as a kid. The main character is extremely like sex charged because as a kid in the movie, if you remember like the very opening scene, the kid spying on like the neighbor or something, I don't know, and that's what makes him kind of like go insane in a way. Like that's like what initially like brought it on. It seemed like so it's just like years and years later to know that like he finally gets out of like a mental institution. In that opening scene where they're like criticizing him, that was kind of goofy. But then it went through this stage, like I'd say like 25% through whenever he gets to the college or the high school. Sorry, it kind of like dies down for me a little bit in terms of comedy or really working as a film. But halfway through, if you could stick around for like 40 minutes, I think that it's so fun, and I think that's the
yes. Thank you. We agree on a cheesy movie.
Yeah, we do. I can understand this was completely self-aware, and I think that knowing that it's self-aware, I can respect it more. So I will give it a good score. I'll give it like a 5 out of 10. How about that?
Okay, okay. Well, I was
Wow.
worried because I think my like for it is based off nostalgia. I grew up watching this and having to, sneak the movie in because it was, rated, the cover art shows like half naked girls on it, right? So you're thinking as a kid, how am I supposed to get this past my parents? So it'd
Right.
be like one of these things you had to find a way to sneak that movie through the rental stores to get it to go. And just a lot of nostalgia comes with it, just being able to watch it again on in high definition, and because it was never available on DVD, it was never available on Blu-ray before, so this was a first time release in the US from Vinegar Syndrome. So it was really cool, and I'm glad you got to check it out. So I was worried that you watching it as an adult would not play off the same as it would be if you had seen it as a kid.
Yeah, and I can kind of see
Hmm.
that as a nostalgia kind of film as well. And I know it was like super hard to find, so I definitely recommend anybody that's a fan of like fun, kind of like cheesy, goofy. It's not horror by any means, really. I mean, it has Invisible Man roots, like we talked about, but it's not necessarily horror. It's
Mike,
more
this
of like
is
this like 80s
Uh,
kind of screwball kind of like
I
sex
can see it.
comedy. It's like the
oh,
most
you're right.
80s,
You're right.
90s film too, because I just see like everything. I always think it's an 80s film, and it surprises me that it came out in 1990. But I mean, obviously, it was probably shot in 88, 89.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was shot in 80. I believe it was 89 that was shot and released in 90. I keep forgetting that it was released. I keep feeling like it's an 80s film because it feels like an 80s film.
It does.
Um, but yeah, it's really cool, Mike. I think you would enjoy it for stupid reasons, like I do, just because it's so silly.
I mean, heck, yeah, Mike, you would really
Yeah.
like this. I think you would dig
What,
it.
what was the name of it again? What was the title?
The Invisible Maniac.
The Invisible Maniac. I
Yeah,
will put that on my list to watch.
it's an Adam Rifkin film, which I think that he's done like only like goofy stuff, right? He hasn't really done anything that's too
Yeah.
serious.
Oh, at the time too, I guess he was doing an alias because I didn't know if he wanted his name to be associated with the film. So as director credit, it was listed as like Riff Coogan or something like that, like some
Yeah, it's
type
like
of like
Rick
director
Coogan.
alias.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard him in
So
that. If you watch that bonus feature on there, Chris, he's like, "Yeah, I was gonna like make all these like kind of like goofy, like stupid kind of films underneath the like pseudonym, Riff Cougar or Coogan or Cooper,
yeah,
whoever it was."
there's a lot of those. Like Riff Coogan is one of them.
Riff Coogan,
I
yeah.
can't remember who else used them, but Alan Smithy is one that people use when they were wanting to use an alias besides themselves. So Alan Smithy, if you ever see that, that's not a real director. That's an alias from someone.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Huh.
What have you seen this week?
Interesting. Uh, well, I have watched that recently added slasher film called Sick on Peacock. Um, have you seen it yet?
I have, yes.
Okay,
I haven't
so
haven't seen it.
I there's two ways I look at this film. I think one way they're kind of like making fun of the pandemic, and there's a lot of like there's a lot that's in this film that's relating like just in general making fun of the pandemic of them saying, oh, stay back 6 feet, 8 feet, put your mask on. There's a lot of contradicting messages in the movie where put your mask on, then next thing you know, that people have their mask off. But back to the overall point of this movie, it's your typical just kind of slasher um, film. I enjoyed it. Basically, it's just two friends that go to a cabin to kind of get away from the pandemic. I think they're in college, so they're shutting down the university because of COVID, and they're kind of getting away. They're kind of quarantining themselves on I think it's a family lake house, and they're just getting away. And randomly, the one girl's boyfriend kind of shows up unannounced to kind of, I guess they're trying to fix their relationship and they're trying to work on things is kind of maybe what I got out of it. But the friend of the girl did not want him there, but in general, he ended up staying the night. So creepy things kind of happen. There's really I was confused with the plot of it in the beginning. I didn't know why the murders were happening, especially why they were trying to attack these girls. And so you don't really get the idea of it until kind of towards the end, obviously. So last 20 minutes of the movie, it kind of ties the whole film in why this murderer is trying to attack these girls. Well, the one female. And I don't want to spoil it because it is recently newer, so there's probably a lot of people that has not seen it. But it was your typical slasher. Like, the storyline wasn't great, but then again, the twist at the end to make it all like relate on why everything was happening, I liked. The murders, the scenes were, I mean, it was well shot movie, well shot. It kind of gave you the vibe of Friday the 13th, because kind of like the log cabin, you know, kind of out in the woods somewhere, and then your typical, like, I wouldn't say scream slasher. I'm trying to think of a good comparison.
Well, listen, guys, I'll start by saying that this film I really enjoyed much more than I was going to. I was going in with the lowest of low expectations, almost saying I wasn't going to watch it because Peacock's like notorious for disappointing everybody. Because if you think about it, they've only made one original film up to date, and we know how that turned out. They them. It was Mike's worst film of the entire year. I think it was one of my worst films. I think it was Chris's worst. Everybody hates that movie.
Yeah.
So whenever I see Peacock original and then see that they're doing a horror film and it's called Sick, and then you read the tagline and it's like, oh, well, it's about the COVID-19 pandemic. You're just expecting absolute dash cam meets they them meets, you know, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? It's just like whatever. So I sat down to watch it, and I think that you were 100% right by saying Scream, Mike. I was sitting there watching it, and I look over my fiance looks at me, and she's like, you know, this feels almost like Scream without being you know.
Well, it's written by Kevin Williamson, right?
I was about to say that. I was shocked to know that Kevin Williamson wrote this, which is the writer for Scream. He wrote Scream 2, Scream 3. He's been producer of Screams. So just to know that while the film itself, I will go ahead and spoil and say it's cliche as hell. In terms of a slasher movie, but I think this is the first true blue full-fledged COVID film. Like, I've never seen, you know, I've seen movies like Glass Onion, Knives Out Story, or, you know, Dash Cam, where it takes place during COVID and COVID lockdowns, but we never really have seen a horror movie up to today that's truly just been straight up about COVID. And this kind of shows like the insanity of how people were during the pandemic. You know, how a lot of people were angry, you know, a lot of people were trying to point fingers at people, you know, don't get my family sick kind of thing. That's kind of how this felt. It felt very much like, I don't know, but when it starts out, you are kind of confused because you don't really know the motivation. You're like, why is this person being stalked, you know, in a grocery store? It has, Chris, I think you're like really explaining at the very beginning because it has some really goofy scenes about the pandemic, and they're like, you just like hear they're at the grocery store, and you hear like over the loudspeaker, they're like, keep 6 feet apart, people, keep that. It just is very COVID like, and it shows the ground where it has like the spacers and like the single weight kind of like aisles. So you can like everybody in the world can relate to this movie because everybody's lived it. But the thing that makes it really interesting is the cabin, and the cabin's when it gets cliche. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, but there was only one thing. I did watch a trailer to it, and there's the one thing that kind of puts me off from it is basically the whole premise of it being the COVID, because you know we dealt with all that bullshit for 2 years. So whenever you watch a movie, you want to escape from all that bullshit that you have to deal with in a daily life. So when you sat down to watch a movie and then you're seeing all that stuff take place, it just kind of, to me, it's a little off-putting. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people with masks on. I don't want to deal with all that while watching a movie. So the fact that somebody in the movie the whole entire movie is about that, like, to me, it's kind of off-putting. But I mean, I guess I have to watch it and see for myself. But
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I can understand how that would put somebody off from wanting to watch it. But whenever you actually see it, it's like it feels. See, it does this thing where it starts out very heavy on COVID, then it kind of goes away a little bit
Yeah.
and becomes a slasher. At the end, it loops back around to COVID, and that's how.
Yes.
But you have to understand, like this film, it's obviously very stupid to call it sick because it's so on the nose. But honestly, it suits it perfectly because of the very last 20 minutes of this film, and it flies by. It's like 85 minutes long or something. So it's a really short, tight-knit slasher. There's not an ounce of fat on it. It flies from the moment it starts to the moment it ends.
Yes.
The last 15-20 minutes, though, it makes sense why they called it sick. And I think that I don't want to spoil it for you, Chris, because it's going to be really, and it's kind of it's a predictable ending, but it's also at the same time sort of not predictable because something happens a little over halfway through and you're like, wow, this is such a on the nose, boring, pretentious, like kind of like idea for a slasher film, putting it during COVID, who cares, whatever. But something happens, Mike, you know what I'm talking about. The last 15 minutes, something gets revealed, and that's why it's called sick. And that's all I'll say with that. But it's by far a perfect movie. I'm not saying it's a great movie. I'm not saying it's even really quite a good movie, but it's a nice, solid, it's Chris. We're talking about Peacock here. What can we?
yeah,
I will add this though about the movie. It, like you said in the beginning, it starts off really fast paced. I mean, it does not take very long at all for, the movie to kickstart. Your first killing, and after that, it does not really slow down, and it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. Like it has some jump scenes, and man, you're kind of glued to the TV, and before you blink, you're like, oh my god, it's almost over. It was really fast paced, like you mentioned, but I thought it was a well put together slasher. There were a lot of scenes where you're like, man, where's the killer? Oh shit, there he is! Like out of nowhere. There's one scene, and I'm not going to give it too far on spoilers, but like my thing is the lake scene. I'll just go there. It was creepy. It was very well played out, and I haven't really seen many movies with some of the killings in like it was with this, and I just thought it was a well done movie. Like you mentioned as well, I don't think it was top notch. Definitely wasn't low budget either. It was very well shot, and I thought the acting was great for a slasher.
100%.
And the killings were pretty phenomenal. But I'll leave it like that, leave it there, because like I said, with all due respect, I don't want to put everything out there because of lax and then other viewers. But I guess we'll just get down to the rating. Me personally, I gave this a 6 out of 10. Just for the simple fact, I was not expecting much, and I was completely shocked.
I also gave it a 6 out of 10, so that's crazy. We're right on side by side.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel like a lot of people is with this. Like it seems like a lot of people are like, I liked it a lot more than I should have. I was surprised that Kevin Williamson wrote it.
I'm gonna have to check it out. It sounds sick.
Oh my god!
All right, that's Fright Fights, guys. We'll see you next time.
Have a great one.
But speaking of, Mike was talking about like blinking and then the movie being over with almost. I watched a movie where literally you blink and the movie was going to be over because it was 45 minutes long.
Oh yeah.
So I was kind of searching for found footage movies. I was in the mood to watch something in that nature. So I decided to do a little search, and I came across a movie called 13. And if you're looking for it, it's spelled out in like Roman numerals. So XIII or whatever. And it's about these two guys who are university students, and they're given an assignment to research a book and do like a video diary based off that book. So they have to research it, videotape themselves researching it, and then talk about it on film, and then come to a conclusion of something. I'm not sure what the full thing was they were supposed to do for the assignment, but so they go to this library, and while they're in the library, they find this book while they're looking through all these other history books and everything. And it's like this journal book that's shoved back behind other books. And so they pull it out and they're like, what the hell is this thing? This is weird. This isn't supposed to be here, is it? And there's no like library information on it or anything. There's all kinds of these symbols and emblems and everything on it, and with this little poem and drawings. So like, this is really creepy. So they start opening the book and reading it. And on the back of the book, there's these Roman numerals that are all written out in spaces, which they think represents coordinates. So they thought, hey, let's check this book out. Let's do our assignment on this book, because basically a teacher said it could be any book from the library, and this is from the library. So let's do it. So they type in the coordinates. They decide that Google Maps pulls it up and it pulls out some unknown location for them. So they're like, let's take a trip. We're going to go and visit this place and document what we find. And it turns out it was like an abandoned building. They go inside at nighttime to videotape everything, and really creepy things start to happen. But my only problem was I really liked the story, but it wasn't long enough. I told Mike when I got done watching, I said, I really enjoyed what I saw, but I wish there was more to it, because it's a build-up and you're interested in the story. I was following through the entire time and interested. And then you get to that build-up, and then by the time the build-up happens, the movie's over with. So it was really quick. It was only about 10 minutes left of the movie when stuff started really happening, and then it was over with, and there was nothing there left, which works for it at the same time, because you're left wanting more. You don't know what's happening. You don't know everything. You don't know a conclusion. And in a situation where if somebody was videotaping something and they go to an abandoned place and something happens and they get killed or whatever, or something of that nature happens, it's not going to be a full story. You're going to watch it and it's going to be cut off. You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was well done it's not really a short film. I guess it considered a feature length, but something cool that I watched that was just kind of uncertain. I didn't know anything about it and went into it not knowing anything, and came out, kind of enjoying it. I'd recommend it. It's on Tubi.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds interesting. I like it because it's 45 minutes, and whenever it comes down to like finish movies, being
The shorter the better.
Exactly. Right. No, honestly,
That's what they say. That's what they say about. That's what they say about Mike's dick.
Well,
Mike's like, no comment.
No comment. I beg to differ.
But guys, there's something about found footage movies that's like, I want to see a found footage movie that like starts like at the end and then goes back to the beginning or something. It does something where there's something about it to where it's just like you see a found footage and it's just like, let me introduce you to this person. Let me introduce you to that person. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. I'm like, man, just give us the build. Don't give us any build up. Just go right into it. And that's where everybody here should watch Dashcam.
It'd be cool. Like Blair Witch, for example, start from the basement where, they found the dude in the corner, like facing the found footage there. Just reverse roll. That would be pretty cool. That'd be very interesting. That's actually good.
A horror version of Memento.
Yes. See, I mean, it's just like we need if you're into a found footage and especially 2023, you need to do something else. And don't give us. I know I was joking around. Don't give us dash cam. We don't want to see that.
No,
we have VHS.
Or at least take the chick out of it. The most annoying human ever.
I say the thing is, it's funny because I'm like saying how much I hate dash cam all the time, but then I always bring it up in jokes. Like I'm talking like it's a good movie or something. I'm like, I promise guys, it's actually really bad. Just don't watch it. But I also can't stop talking about it. So, well,
yeah, it was a really cool found footage film. I recommend anybody checking it out. And yeah, it's real short, so you're not gonna waste a lot of time with it. But with that, I mean, Tyler, I think it's time to battle.
I have one more.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, fuck.
Rewind.
Because I have to talk about the hottest movie in theaters right now, and she is stunning. She is smart. She is made from titanium. This is Megan. Neither of you guys have watched this yet, have you?
No, I've not watched
I'm telling you, there is a scene, and if you guys look at TikTok, you'll see. I sent this to Chris too. she literally sits there and sings Titanium in the movie Megan. The Megan doll does. Like Megan sings the song David Guetta Titanium in the movie Megan. Yes, that is real.
Really?
Yeah, that being said though, you have to
What?
understand Megan definitely doesn't take itself serious. So
I
James
I'm
Wan, okay, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
am stuck on this because I like a lot of stupid stuff. Like the dumber, the better for me, right? The cheesy, the better. And this movie looks to be some of the like it looks absolutely dumb to me. Like I had no interest in it. But then everybody that has watched it has said how good this movie is. Like I have not heard one bad review about this film.
Right. Yeah.
I asked Chris, I was like, Chris, you wanna come see it with me this weekend? And he was like, I'm gonna have to pass. But that's the thing, it's just like a lot of people think that it was gonna be really, really bad. I was one of them. I knew for a fact that this film was gonna be just horrible. That being said, I mean, you have to understand, okay, James Wan has been producing a lot of these films, and the thing is that for Blumhouse especially, he's been producing a lot of films. But the thing is I feel like James Wan doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with these films. But this one he wrote, which is a little step up. So he's not just producing it, he's writing it as well. So the big thing is, yes, Megan, it's the doll. You've probably seen all the Today Show videos where they hired a bunch of backup dancers to just dance and whatever. But the thing is that it has this kind of edge that's very comedic. It doesn't take itself too serious. It's not necessarily played straight edge, but the thing is, it's not stupid. Like it's not like goofy comedy. Like it's played like a straightforward like horror comedy, like dark comedy. You could almost say. And there are some scenes that you're kind of like, ooh, it's kind of has a lot of like horror edge. Um Overall, I think that it was about as good as I thought it was going to be after the hype. Because if you remember, everybody was like, it's going to suck, it's going to suck, it's going to suck. It comes out opening day, and people's like, it's actually kind of good. So I adjusted my expectations and said, let's just give this thing a shot. I get there. I kind of enjoyed it. It's very predictable. The Megan doll itself is kind of weird, but it feels very today. It's like one of those films that's not necessarily like stuck. Because like whenever you watch like these films that have technology in it, and the technology seems either like military grade, like stuff that would never happen, it seems like, or it seems like it's like completely outdated, kind of goofy technology. You know what I'm saying? But Megan does feel like something that could be real. And the fact that we hear all these stories about like how Google has been designing this thing, it's become a sentient being and it has feelings and all this stuff. Megan kind of plays on that. The idea maybe technology, is too advanced. Maybe it has a mind of its own, because there are moments in the film where you see the mom try to turn off Megan at certain times, and Megan refuses to turn off. And she just keeps talking, keeps like trying to like almost threaten, like she's almost being condescending to the family. So overall, it's interesting. It's not great, but it's definitely not bad. It's probably, I would put it on the same caliber as Sick. I mean, it's a very well shot. It's well acted. I laughed a couple times. There was a few times I kind of jumped. So I think it really does succeed at creating an atmosphere that is both. It could be scary to people. It's like one of those movies for the masses. So it's like a movie that like, general people who would just go to the movies to have fun, not necessarily like a cinephile or into kind of horror movies of any kind. They're just there for a good time. And that's kind of like what it is. It's a movie you go see. Probably a lot of teenagers too would go see with like their friends, and it's just it's for a party. So overall, I would probably give it about a 6.5, but
I read an
I
interview.
would recommend it. Sorry,
Read
what?
an interview with the director, and he was talking about how his original cut was a lot more violent. There was a lot of gore. There was a lot of language in it, and he wanted to appeal to more of an audience, so they trimmed it down to a PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
And after releasing the film in theaters, he said a better way to do this to tell the full story is to have an uncut version that I want to release on DVD and Blu-ray.
I found this on the web for he said. Check it out.
Okay, Megan just came to your house, Tyler.
dude.
Was that you or is that Mike?
Lax?
Someone's
No.
dying. What's going on?
That was me.
I thought that was Lax's sex doll. I mean, seriously. You want me to do what? That was creepy. That speaking of ghosts, that was really freaking creepy.
That was.
Come on, Zoom.
Hmm.
All right, sorry, Chris. What was it? Megan paid us a visit.
Yeah, I'd read that where he wants the original R-rated cut to be released on DVD, Blu-ray, and home video for more of an audience to be able to go see it that way, to see its full intention. And I believe he was talking about if they get the ability to make a sequel, which I think has already been greenlit, that they're going to try to go for a more violent version than they did from the first one.
Mm-hmm. They're calling it Megan 2.0, which I think is interesting. But 100%, Chris. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's 100% because it's PG-13. There's a lot of moments that you see held back. The violence could be a lot more bloody or a lot more violent, but it's not. So I do think that I didn't even mention this, but one of the key issues is the fact I think that it's PG-13, and it would have been a lot more successful and more interesting if it wasn't R-rated film. And if Megan 2.0, when it comes out, is R-rated, I could see it being amazing. I could have seen this one being amazing if it was R. And I mean, knowing James Wan, he probably did initially want Megan to be rated R, but when you have a movie like it's been marketed, it makes sense financially that the studio would want to make it PG-13. Because how many PG-13 horror is there nowadays? And
this is Blumhouse, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And for a PG-13 Blumhouse, because Blumhouse has made some PG-13, but it's always, I mean, they're always almost R. Like 90% of their films, it feels like. So the fact that Megan is a PG-13, I can see why they did it, and I think it's nice to have that kind of, variation of ratings, but Megan was definitely not the film to make it with. They should have just done a PG-13 Halloween, honestly. I think that would have been a lot better.
Wow.
You guys didn't see Mike's.
I'm just like, wow.
I was messing with you. I was messing with you. Could you imagine a PG-13 Halloween?
Well, no. That's why I was speechless. I was like, I could not even put that in my mind.
It was funny. Chris was like, huh.
we were like, huh? Yeah, like that's a weird opinion there, Tyler.
Yeah. I didn't want to be like disrespectful. I was like, no, that sucks.
We are back, and we have just watched the Scream 6 trailer. What'd you guys think?
I loved it.
What I think.
You go, Tyler.
I think it looks absolutely amazing. I think the casting is brilliant. I think it looks incredibly dark. I think it looks exciting. It feels very much like one of the darkest Scream movies, and I think that it seems very fun. It kind of went back to how it reminds me like how the first movie, really kind of brought on an entire atmosphere, cast of characters, and it just seems like it's almost doing that again for us.
Yeah, it feels different. It feels intense. It really, really catches my attention with every little detail, like a throwback to the first films, even the second film too. But I mean, whenever you have that shrine, there's that the phone from the first movie is there. She uses that phone and to pick up like the call, or that Ghostface uses to call Gail.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of cool, like the dial tone and everything from it is from the first movie. There's a lot of really cool stuff about it. I'm really looking forward to it. The only thing that bothers me, and it's not really a bad bother, but it kind of confuses me a little bit. Ghostface always kills his victims. He picks them out specifically. Like there's a reason behind every single person that Ghostface kills. And then in this one, that random person in the supermarket that he shoots with the shotgun and slashes the guy with a knife. I mean, you can definitely tell it's different, but is that going to be something that's actually part of the story, or is that like a different type of ghost? Like, is it going to be somebody who is just a robber of the store, just happens to be wearing a ghost face mask?
The only thing I had to say about that whole scene right there, a lot of people, viewers saw that, well, Ghostface doesn't like kill with a shot or a gun. I liked it. It's like the whole tagline. new city, new rules. I believe in that. Like, I like it because it's kind of like anybody gets in his way for what he's going after is going to fucking die. So just like any bystanders. So, I mean, like, this is a new, meaner Ghostface with no set rules. Whoever gets in his way is going to die. And I think that's what this franchise needs. It doesn't need to be like a line of people that die. I mean, like whoever gets in their way is dead. And it's darker. It's just, I think it's a fresh start, but a new fresh start, like a fresh start on steroids. I think that, like I said, this Ghostface is going to be a badass. And honestly, this is for the first time that I have no idea who the hell this is going to be. I have no clue who's going to be under that mask. If there's one or if there's two, I'm kind of curious. Like, you know, what was it? Scream 3, there was only one killer. It was the brother. So on Scream 6, is there only going to be one dedicated killer, or is there going to be a group of killers, or is there going to be two killers? There's so many questions, but dude, I love this. Darker, dirtier, you know, just no holds barred.
Speaking of Ghostface, we're having like super high winds where we're from, and I literally just like stood because it sounded like someone was like beating out like my window. I was like looking outside. We're talking about Ghostface. I'm over here like looking for Ghostface. But I can't wait to see it. Yeah, I can't believe we're only like 2 months away. It felt like it was so far, and then it just pops up, and then we're just, you know, weeks away at this point. So it's
Yeah,
crazy.
if they do this with a new Ghostface movie or new Scream movie every year and just keep reinvigorating what he does and the new rules, different, like, I would be on board every single year for a new Scream film if they keep it up with the way that they did with 5 and the way that this one looks as well.
Yeah, well, totally.
Yeah. I can't wait for Scream Kentucky. I can't wait for that version.
Yeah.
Waverly Hills Sanitarium, Ghostface.
Yeah.
It's Dewey because he's like, you know, he's a ghost.
The thing is if you get Scream in Kentucky, it's going to be called Holler.
That's the funniest thing.
That's good.
That's hilarious. Oh, all right, guys. Well, you know what time it is. We are doing our Ghostface,
Ding, ding.
ghost story, haunted house, you know, battle. So we want to go ahead and tell the films first, or do you want to just start kicking it off? How do you guys want to do it?
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and describe the first movie. We'll talk about it, and then we'll just describe the second, talk about the third movie. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Since the last episode, we decided that we were going to spin the wheel. We were going to have a wheel that was full of different genre topics. We spun the wheel. Whatever topic it landed on, that's the topic that we chose to be this episode. And Tyler, your choice won. You chose haunted house films, which was basically anything that was the house being or a location being the haunted thing. Like, it could be ghost movies, it could be possession, it could be any type of horror film, as long as the house or location is the main subplot of the film. And with that being said, you chose a classic horror film from Dario Argento, which is the Suspiria. So go ahead and describe what Suspiria is to everybody.
Absolutely. So Dario Argento has always been somebody that I've been like very aspired to be if I was ever a filmmaker. He's inspired tons of people too. So his most well-known film is probably Suspiria. I mean, he's known for a lot of stuff, but the one thing that it always goes back to no matter what is Suspiria. And people adore this film, and it has a remake at this point. You know, tons of merch, tons of people talk about it. I'm like a Suspiria collector at this point. I have every version. I have tons of t-shirts. It's just become a phenomenon. So whenever we talk about films where like the house becomes the main character, that's pretty much Suspiria, because Suspiria really doesn't have necessarily a very strong plot. It's very paper thin in terms of story. Yeah, and it's meant to be that way. I think it's meant to be something it's classified as a bona fide giallo film. A lot of people argue this. A lot of people will say it's not, but it's arguably a giallo film, and it does have that gloved killer. It has the lights. It has this, you know, style of filmmaking. Everything about it screams giallo. So for the sake of this, we're just gonna call it giallo. So pretty much,
I'll give you that. I'll give you
right?
that. I think it qualifies as a giallo film, and this is something I think this movie is going to be a little bit of an agreement with me and you this time, Tyler. I know
Hey,
I know that this type of movie is not for Mike. He doesn't really dive into this genre really, and I know from talking to him at work, I think this is going to be a 2-on-1 against Mike movie. So
oh no, Mike. That's my baby. Um, so overall about Suspiria, the house itself is a character, and the way it is, the way it's shot, it does feel very, very architectural. And the way the film ends, the entire studio is on fire. So just to fast forward this, we have Susie, which is a American that is traveling to a dance academy. She arrives there, and immediately we're struck by this kind of like, aesthetic that Dario Argento has put by. It's literally, there's wind, there's rain. She arrives very late, and people start, and basically, essentially, she starts meeting people. She starts, striving for her dance career, and people start getting picked off. There's a little bit of, subplot to that. A lot of things happen. It kind of goes witch movie. It has very kind of like witchy vibes. And by the end, the entire place, ultimately crumbles. And that's something that I really, really enjoy about it, is when she stood there in front of it, you see almost like the studio itself kind of takes on this like giant kind of like standing building towering over her. And when she enters it, it's so mysterious. She's never truly accepted. She tries to, to make amends, but there's something really going on, and you can tell something's very wrong. And whenever you see, all the vision of what Dario put together, it makes complete sense the way the film ends and the place is on fire. So I really like the way he used visuals to storytell. It shows that you don't necessarily need to rely heavily on a plot. You can just, tell a beautifully told, almost like fairy tale like story through use of imagery. And it gets scary at times. Like there's a few moments, especially like the whispering and like the way the sound design is, and like that main score by Goblin. People love Goblin still today just for the score. It's so popular. So overall, I mean, it's definitely a film that is not plot heavy. I will say, I'm sitting here thinking right now, I could see
no,
how
there's
maybe
there's really no plot. There's really no plot because as I was watching it again, because it's been a long time since I'd seen it, and this time around, when the movie was done with, I thought, man, that was so simple.
it is
Like,
very simple.
and if you really think about it, she okay, if you go ahead and jump to the end of the film, she defeats the so-called the witches or whatever you want to say is going on there
Yeah.
very easily. Um, she pretty much is in her bed. She's been given medicine or drugs or whatever the entire movie, so she doesn't really know what's going on each night. And then she wakes up and she's like, I'm no longer going to be doing this because I know I'm being drugged each night. I'm going to go see what's happening in this house. I'm going to investigate it.
Mhm.
Somebody told me you could follow footsteps. Okay. Oh, there's witches here. Okay. Stab, movie done. What? Like, there really wasn't. I'm not saying this in a bad way. I really enjoyed the film. I think that story wise and plot wise, he didn't have anything. So I don't know if that was something because he was focused so much on the visualization of the red and the greens and stuff for the storytelling as opposed to the actual story itself.
We talk about cinema being like art.
Hmm.
And I think that that's definitely what Dario Argento had in mind with this. I know he didn't focus heavily on the plot because I think I've heard him talk before how the script didn't take him too long. It was more of the vision of the film itself. But the atmosphere he strove for really, really, really was great. And there was this one thing that I remember always is this was shot back in the 70s. Well, back in the 70s, they had, colored lights were very hot. And the entire thing was, colored light. So the fact that these actors, I heard that sometimes the set was like 100 degrees. So to know right then and there that using those color lights were going to make it so hot and so miserable to shoot, he obviously did this very intentionally because he wouldn't have like subjected himself to such a horrible, shoot itself if it wasn't going to benefit the storytelling. So overall,
Yeah.
you're 100% right. There's a very paper thin plot. It's like I said, like almost like fairy tale like the way like Goblin does the score, the way it's shot, the way the atmosphere is. When she's counting the steps, like whenever she like starts, remember like the moment where she like, started counting and going through, that was a super like intense moment. So it really does focus as well on like intensity and kind of like blood, carnage, all this kind of like stuff that surrounds it, but not the plot. It's everything but the plot.
Yeah, and it really doesn't know what it wants to be honest, because you have the glove killer. Then you think, oh well, is it going to be a glove killer like a regular giallo film slasher? Oh no, this could be something supernatural. I think there might be ghosts related to this. Oh no, they're talking about witches now, and there's witches in this house. What is going on? And you just don't really know what way he's wanting the film to go. And ultimately, I think it does help with the whole fairy tale feel, the whole weirdness that the film has, because it is so all over the place with a very thin plot. But the one thing that the movie does have going for it, and I think you'll agree with me on this, is the kills. And Argento is known for these style of kills too. But
Mhm.
even that opening scene when the girl is stabbed and you see the knife going into her heart, like it's cringeworthy. Like you really feel it. It feels even though it's kind of dated a little bit with the effects, it still felt so real that it hurt. Like I was cringing, watching it. And then excuse me, her head hits that windowsill and you see it dripping down through the ceiling, and the glass falls, and the glass like lands on top of the other girl that's
Mhm.
standing there, and you see like the glass shards in her eye and her neck sticking out, and it felt like the effect was really well done. And then you jump later on in the movie and you have the girl jumping into the razor wire area or falling into it. And that was something cringeworthy too, because you just know, like, if you think of, barbed wire fences or whatever, and and
I
you just
love
barely
that
touch,
scene.
you barely touch one of those things, you know how bad those things fucking hurt. And just imagine an entire room full of that, and somebody just from up top just falls into it and just can't get out. It was an intense moment for that, really.
I want to say one more thing. I'm gonna open up the mic because I'm really curious to see what he thinks about it. But one thing that I always have loved about Argento as well is the fact that it's not just Suspiria. This is every single Argento film. He uses his own hand to kill. So every single shot in the movie has actors, but across every single movie he's ever made, the glove killer, the person that's the knife, that shot, that signature Argento shot, that's his own hand. And I think that's really unique. And they've talked a lot. There's like film essays written like from people in film school about this and film theory about how it's really unique and interesting that Argento chooses to kill his victims in his films with his own hand. And that's something that I really feel like is profound in the art world of cinema, as well as just Argento's filmography, giallos. It's just all kind of goes together with that. But with that being said, Mike, what's going on?
All right. I still don't really know what I watched. I will start out by saying my head still hurts from the music. If Brendan and Dale from Step Brothers took out his nutsack and hit it on the drum set, it would be better music. I, I I'm just saying
No, no,
the
no. What?
music. No, the music. It sounds like
The show is about to
gremlins
get canceled.
banging
Mike,
on pots. It's just it's
this music
this.
is done by Goblin, which is a classic horror film score.
Listen. This is what I think. With
No,
all
you
due
didn't listen
respect,
to the music.
no, the
I
music
have
is awful.
Dude,
The
the
music's
music is
terrible.
literally without. Okay, imagine watching Suspiria without any of the Goblin music.
It would be amazing. I mean, it would be absolutely amazing. I mean, if it was a silent film, I would have been more interested.
No.
But okay. So I will give some highlights. I will tell you this: there are some very interesting shots. I will give it that. But you could just YouTube it and save you some time and of the shots. The editing is incredible, but as soon as something gets interesting, it like cuts to some moon or bizarre unrelated thing. It's just a weird movie. Maybe I need to watch it a few times to maybe get a better understanding of it. But me personally, I think the acting is beyond bad. I really do. I think the acting's bad. I think it's
I have to disagree. I think the acting on your end, you're seeing it at a different perspective because Italian films, and I know you haven't dived into this genre very much, but the audio recording for Italian films is always recorded separate, and they dub their own voices, and it makes it feel very awkward when you watch it. Like voices don't.
And no, I get that. I think you and I we watch movies, and I'm really bad with dubbed movies. Like I'm like I can't get interested. I can't get into it. And I just feel like it's horribly dubbed. It almost comes off that way. It reminds me of Thomas Lacey. It's such a bad movie. If I put it into a person and a human, it'd be Thomas Lacey. No, but maybe I need to watch it. The lighting and everything.
You need to watch it again, you mean?
He said, maybe I just need to watch it. I'm like, yes, Mike, that's exactly what you need to do.
I need to rewatch it again. What I saw out of it, just loud banging noises. The acting was not good. The editing was incredible. I will say that. But I feel like you could save yourself a little bit of time and just YouTube some of this movie. This is me. I agree with you all with a lot of the films. I am just not seeing it. Me personally, I don't know how this is considered a classic. Was not a fan.
Dude.
Oh my God, Mike!
Mike.
These listeners, they are gonna kill you, Mike, because this movie is considered to be one of the all-time greatest Italian horror films.
It could be the greatest Italian, but as an American film, this sucked.
My God.
This is horrible.
No, listen.
This is horrible.
I can give Mike this. I will give Mike this. Okay. So Argento is an acquired taste, and I understand that. And sometimes you do have to watch a few of his films to really kind of understand what he's doing. If you're watching a film for the first time, you've never watched an Argento film, you've never watched a giallo, let's say.
I wouldn't start with the Suspiria. Yeah, you wouldn't start with that one.
Watching Suspiria is like the ultimate kind of like Italian movie experience. It's something that you'd have to like really kind of almost develop it. Just like, people talk about sushi. You have to develop the taste for like fine wine. It's like it has to age. You have to understand. It does take time. And I'm not saying like if you watch Suspiria 100 times, you're all of a sudden going to like it. You may still hate it. But I'm just saying like sometimes that may help. So I'm gonna have to recommend Mike some giallo films because I think that you should watch at least like 3, and then if you still hate all the films by that point, you may just hate giallo. But overall, I could understand how at first glance Suspiria could be kind of a not so great experience because it is Italian actors. None of them speak,
and it is
English.
It is a little slow too. It is a little slow.
The plot is paper thin, yes. But one thing I want to say, Mike. What about so we're doing house movies, like we're doing like movies where the house kind of like is the main character. Did you at least get like the atmosphere from it?
I could, but I mean, what was it? Now there were some like disturbing parts of the movie. What was it? There was a scene of the falling maggots or something like that.
Yes.
Was that? So that was disturbing.
God, I hate it. I forgot all about that.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing. Like, there were some really good visuals, and I'm not saying the movie as whole. Like, maybe I need to. I have not seen many movies of this director, or producer, or whatever the individual that made this movie. I can't say I have. So that's unfair for me to say. All of his movies are trash. Can't say that because that wouldn't be fair. But this is probably the first film I've seen, and it's really out there. It's really out there.
We are getting canceled so hard right now.
Oh my God, Mike, Whew.
It's Dario Argento.
I'm not saying the guy's awful. I'm not saying that, but I am saying this movie sucked. This movie sucked. I'm sorry, guys.
I can understand like not liking it and being like, yeah, the movie's slow and boring, but to say that it sucks, man, I can't.
I should. All right, let me rephrase this. Let me sugarcoat it. It was very boring. It just was not my preference, I should say.
And
let me turn to Chris.
I wanted to.
I was going to ask you, Chris. So this time you said that we're going to be okay. So you know me. I've always loved Suspiria, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said, yeah, Suspiria is good. You've always said, like, yeah, it's good. It's solid. I haven't watched it in a while. And this time you texted me and said, I think we're like very aligned on this. I like this a lot more than I remember it. So what do you think personally has changed from the times that you were watching it saying, yeah, it's a good movie, to like, wow, this is a very good movie?
I think watching it as a kid, I think it was really the boring part to it. Like there was a lot of talking, there was a lot of stuff with the ballet and everything that I did not like when I was growing up. Watching it as an adult, those parts aren't really important to the film, and I focus more on the murder sequences with the stabbing at the beginning opening was really cool this time around. I don't remember that happening. For some reason, I thought that was like in the middle of the film. And then watching it again, it's at the beginning. Then you had the razor wire scene. The maggot scene that Mike was talking about caught me off guard. I completely forgot about that. And I hate maggots. I absolutely disgusted by them completely. Just seeing them grosses me out. And I forgot all about it. And then it continued on for like a full 2-minute sequence. And it was just a very uneasy feeling that I got watching it. And that's what a movie's supposed to do. And I was trying to, I didn't get in full detail with Mike, but Mike told me about it. He was like, yeah, that maggot sequence. He's like, I hated it. And I thought, man, because you watch something that puts you in an uneasy feeling doesn't mean the movie's bad. I said it did that on purpose because they know a lot of people hate maggots. So if you were in that situation and maggots were falling on you, man, you'd be freaking disgusted by it. And that's what the characters were. They were disgusted by it. And so I kind of felt in the same aspect as them. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like watching it because of that, but it's what it was supposed to do. And I think overall, I just enjoyed the film a lot more this go around than I had previous times that I watched it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad it's growing on you. I remember just watching it the very first time and seeing the visuals and like the eyes, like looking at her through the apartment. I remember seeing that. I was like, man, this is feeling like very like atmospheric is all I could describe it as. And then you see the scene where the hanging at the very beginning as well. Whew, that was beautifully done with like the pattern floors. So yeah, there's something just about the art of Suspiria that really holds like a close space in my heart. And if I was ever trying to like capture something that really felt, fresh and like stylish, but at the same time like disgusting and weird, it's like Suspiria. It's a little witchy, it's a little culty, it's a little, it does get a little goofy, it gets a little slashery, it's giallo like. So it has a little bit of like everything, and I think that Argento does such a beautiful job with it.
Yeah, but
right.
But like I said, it's not great.
Well, guys, this will be my last podcast. I'm booted off the island. No, don't get me wrong. Like, I appreciated all of the, I guess, what am I using? Artsy, colorful. Like, it was cool. It was cool in that aspect. And maybe I need to watch more films to get a better idea. I'm just not super familiar with a lot of his movies, and maybe that's me being sheltered more towards like just your typical slashers and things like that. But this first go around, I wasn't a fan. I can't say it was the worst movie I've ever seen because it wasn't. But
well, hey, Mike, it's part of the trilogy, so hang tight on that.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like it's just not fair. I just don't know much of what I've heard the name. It's just, if this is the first movie I've seen of him, I don't know I mean,
I'm
like
gonna
I
show
said,
you.
I would have to be open to
Yeah, I
see
know
more
that
of his
this is
movies.
your. I know that this was your first go around into Italian films, and you've never dived into it at all, and even like researching it. I don't think you're not familiar with that side of the genre at all. And this was not the film for you to start with. If I had to choose an Italian giallo film or Italian horror film to start with, I would not choose Suspiria. But that being said, I really do like the film, but I think the film itself ended abruptly. It was something that I wish there was more of it, and I wish there was other parts of the film that wasn't there. I wish there was less of the ballet stuff, less of the instructors walking around, up and down the stairs talking, and more focusing on the end sequence, because that could have been strung out to another 15 to 20 minutes and been a little bit better, instead of her going to the room, like following the footsteps, going to the room, and then just remembering somebody whispering the flowers or something, the flower, and then her looking at the wall and saying, "Oh, there's the flower. I should turn it." And then she turns it and opens up the secret door. And like, that was the easiest secret door for anybody to ever find and get into.
It wasn't a secret. Kidding.
Yeah.
The secret door wasn't secret. No, and also, Mike, if you think about the music as well, if you've seen on there, like the echoey part of the music that it like sounds like somebody's almost talking, it's
Yeah.
actually saying, it's just kind of like a Friday the 13th thing where it's like kill mom, and it's like, so it does the same thing in Suspiria, which I think is kind of interesting because the entire movie it alludes to this, but you don't know it's witches until later on. But from the very get-go, it actually is saying witch over and over and over again. That's
Yeah,
why
that weird, that whispery. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's saying the word witch repeated and like echoed. So like it tells you from the very beginning it's witches, but you don't know. I think that's kind of interesting.
Huh.
Mike's like, I actually hate it more now.
Yeah, like no, I can't. Like, no, I can't. All jokes aside, I can't say I hated the film, but I just this as me viewing this for the first time, it was very different. I mean, like I said, it's not the worst film I've ever seen, but as of right now, it's not high on my list. Maybe I need to see more and to really appreciate this type of film. But man, it was.
It is what
And I
you're
was
Yeah.
saying, Mike, there are 3 films in the franchise. There's this Suspiria. The sequel was called Inferno, and the third one's called Mother of Tears. And I really enjoy Inferno a lot more than I like Suspiria. It's always been my favorite of the 3, and there's so much more to talk about with Inferno as well. So I think I'm interested because even the music is 10 times better in Inferno than Suspiria. So I think going forward, if we do jump back into Italian films, which I hope we do because I love some Italian films, and I want to see what Mike thinks about those, because if he doesn't like Suspiria, like what other movies that are classics is he not gonna like?
Well, I will
There's a
say,
lot.
so my top 3 Argentos, Suspiria, Inferno, and Tenebrae. I think you're gonna Tenebrae is different. Inferno
Tenebrae's
kind
good.
of has the same vibe though as Suspiria. It is a good film. I think it's just as almost as good as Suspiria. Mother of Tears, on the other hand, not so much. But as like the 2 films, or Suspiria and Inferno, great films. But I would almost probably suggest Tenebrae next to see.
Tenebrae, Trauma,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Opera. Opera is a really
Ooh,
good
I think
giallo.
he may like opera. Yeah, probably. I don't know. Phenomena, he might actually like that too. I would just try. I would, like I said, I would give it at least 3. Maybe not do Inferno next. Maybe
I'll do
come
that.
back to Inferno last, like third. Maybe
I'll be
try.
We'll
fair.
get
I'll
you
do
into
that.
it, Mike. We'll get you into it. We'll get you
No,
into
yeah,
Argento.
yeah, and maybe I need that. Like I said, this as my first film of that is it wasn't my favorite. So maybe I just need to get worked into it and to really enjoy it and appreciate it more.
Yeah, I
You
think
need
we
to watch
started you
some-
off on the wrong batch.
He needs some Lucio Fulci in his life.
Oh yeah, definitely. House by the Cemetery. zombie,
dude,
man.
I'm telling you, I love Fulci just as much as Argento, if
Mike,
not more.
Mike, we are going to open up your world of horrors to so much more stuff. Whether you like it or not, I don't know. I
At least
can't
take me to
judge.
dinner first. All right.
Love it. Hit us with your rating, Mike.
He's like, gotcha, 10 out of 10.
No, I'm gonna get I'm gonna go a weird rating. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I'm not gonna give it a 5
Okay.
because maybe I'm not giving it terrible. It's not terrible. I just maybe need to. I give it a 4.5.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I was expecting a lot lower from you based off how you didn't like it. So I'm actually okay with that that rating from you.
No,
Um,
4.5.
as I was saying, because of the ending being abrupt, because of it being a little slow, there's so much stuff I do like about it, and it did grow on me from previous years. I give this film a 7 out of 10.
Nice. I'm going to have to give it. You guys already know. You guys, I don't know why I'm even rating it. You guys already know. It's a 10.
Yeah,
Easily.
I knew you. Yeah.
It's not a 9.9 even. It is a solid 10. I just couldn't imagine the other way.
First off, I want to go on the record, and I think this is the first 10 out of 10 score we've had on our show.
It is. It is. I've said it's as close to a 10 as it can get without being a 10, and that's as high as I've ever gotten. But this is my first true blue, I think, period, out of all three of us. This is our first 10. I think it's rightfully so. I think that, Suspiria is just it's inspiring to filmmakers. It's so much everything we said and more. It's just hard to put it into words. If you're listening to this podcast, you're most likely seen Suspiria, but if you haven't, let me tell you, it's just you have to just see it to believe it. And Mike can vouch for that. He loved it.
So that is a score.
I am speechless.
That's a 21.5 of a rating for us. So right now, Tyler, you're winning.
Nice. All right, what you guys got?
I have HellHouse LLC. I am a huge fan of this movie and the actual franchise. I'll kind of give a summary of the HellHouse LLC. It was made in 2015. So basically, it's about it's about a malfunction of a haunted house, where there is 15 tour goers die, and staff, and then a film crew returned back to the location years later to do a story on this. I think from the very get-go, as a kind of, what would I say, found footage, documentary, first person enhanced, video. I really thought it was well done. It was one of these hidden gems. I never heard about it until Chris and I just randomly started picking scary movies, and we saw this and we picked it and we watched it. And it's not a high budget film by all means, but I wouldn't really say it's a low budget film. It's kind of it's kind of in the middle, but I enjoyed every aspect of this movie. For the actors to be not very famous, I thought the acting was done decently well. I love the storyline. There are 3 Hell Houses. I liked how everyone, I know I'm talking about Hell House, the original one, Hell House LLC, but I liked how they all went together. They flowed together with the 3. I guess I just don't want to go too much into this. I like the creepiness. I like the kind of the pop-up scare. I really enjoyed the clowns that were in the house. I enjoyed, how you were first person kind of walking into a haunted house. You were there in the mix of the action, walking through the house, and kind of got to see firsthand on bits and pieces of the so-called malfunction, which was really like basically demons coming up and basically killing people, taking people and killing them and keeping their keeping these individuals at the hotel forever. They were never leaving. They wanted to add to the hotel. So I really enjoy this. There's nothing I can say that's bad about this. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I don't know. I would like to hear what you all have to say, and then I'll go a little bit more in depth with why I love this.
So this movie did a really good job at being a realistic documentary. When I first watched the movie, I generally thought that I was like, oh man, I actually picked out a documentary movie to watch instead of an actual film. Like that's what, because I hadn't seen a trailer or anything. I really thought we picked a documentary movie, and it turns out to be an actual film. So it was actually well done at that. It tricked me. It got me confused. And to be honest, we've talked about this movie, or we at least mentioned it on the show before. This is one of the few movies that legitimately scared me the first time I watched it. I watched it alone in the dark at night by myself, and I was really scared. There's a sequence where there's these three clowns that that make appearances throughout the film. There's a couple moments where they kind of pop up and they move by themselves. The camera catches it quickly off guard, and the entire time you're with it being in that found footage style, you're looking in the background. You're trying to find things that move or things that happen or hear things. And the entire time I'm watching this by myself, I am intrigued, and I'm like looking over my shoulder thinking I'm hearing something, and then seeing the clowns on film. I was legitimately scared by this movie, and that has not happened to me in a very, very long time, because it is very hard as an adult, as a horror fan adult, to be legitimately scared by a film these days. And so I give this film great props for being able to have such an atmosphere to terrify me at the age of 35. Like, that's hard for something to do, and it did it.
I wanted to interrupt before Tyler's opinion. It's not even just the clowns that do that doesn't even do its justice to me, because it's little things that, like you said, the head would move, and supposedly the heads can't physically move because they're like statues, they're dummies, but the heads can't move and they're moving, and the bodies are like actually moving, they're walking and moving. Another thing, that there was a scene where one of the I forgot the guy's name. I think it was Paul. He was kind of the jerk, the guy that joked around a lot, was very
Paul
inconsiderate. So he was in the bedroom filming like it, and it was very quick within the movie. Sarah, it was like in the background. He was like, "Hey, what's up, Sarah?" And she just kind of walks off. And then like it goes back to Paul again, kind of recording himself. And it's the same thing. She's kind of standing in the door frame, and he looks back and he's like, "Hey, can I help you? Or are you okay?" Doesn't say anything. Then the third time, he kind of like, he's waking up. I guess he's like in the middle of the night. And he's just, he wakes up from mid sleep, and there's like a demon, a zombie, whatever you want to say, dead person sitting in his room. And he looks back and he's like, oh shit. And he covers up with his his sheets. And I mean, like at that moment, I was terrified, because then he uncovered his face from the sheets, and he looked over, and like the head's just staring right at him. And just me talking about that gives me goosebumps. That gives me chills. And then he covers back up, and next thing you know, he's like, he hears something, but I think he thinks it's the zombie or the demon's walking out of the room, uncovers himself again. Boom, right there in the face, in his face. And that like, to me, as as a horror fan, that frightened me. And the clowns moving by themselves. And there was another part of this movie, I could talk about this all day, where they were doing a walkthrough of the haunted house, and there was this like strobe lights, and they had these clowns like in a hallway, and he says, "Hey man, we're doing a test call. We're going to do these flat, like the strobe lights just let me tell me how the effect is. He's like, and the Paul guy's like, yeah, deal, absolutely. And the strobe lights are going on and off. And in the middle of the strobe lights, he's like on the microphone or on the walkie-talkie. He's like, how many clowns are supposed to be here? And they're like, 3. He's like, okay. He's like, are you sure? And like, and it will freeze frame it, and it's like the clowns are moving, and it looks like 4 or 5 of them. And like originally they were like peeking out of the door frames or peeking out over top of the bar. Well, hell, like when it's like strobe lighting, these individuals, these clowns, are actually in the middle of the hallway. And dude, that's frightening. To me, that was frightening.
Yeah, and it's not just the clown parts either, like you were saying. There's a whole sequence where they wake up in the middle of the night, and the place that they're filming at it looks like a legitimate abandoned place. It looks like the place is falling down and everything. So that itself in the dark is kind of creepy. But you hear this like the piano playing, and it's this really just unsettling song that's just playing over and over on the piano. And they're making their way down the stairs saying, who's doing that? Where's that coming from? And the cool thing about it, in most movies wouldn't do this, but as they're getting closer to the piano, the music is getting louder and louder. And most movies it would be the same tone throughout until they got to the room, and then it would cut away. But this one, like the music got louder and louder, and you're intrigued. You're getting closer to, you're leaning closer to the TV. You're trying to look down the hallways when they're moving down the hallways to see what you see. They enter the room, and you hear one last piano key, and there's nobody there. And you're just like, you're trying to look while they're trying to look, and it's so unsettling and just so creepy. I loved this movie, and like you were saying, we just chose this movie to watch randomly with not knowing anything about it. It was a hidden gem that we knew nothing about, and I'm so glad that we found this film.
I agree.
I mean, same with you guys. You guys have really said everything the way I feel about this, and Mike really had an excellent pick with this one, because out of the atmosphere that it builds in the haunted house is absolutely terrifying. I had a similar experience with like Chris had actually when I watched this, because I knew nothing about it either, and it was like 3 a.m. and I was in bed and I was just kind of flipping through. This was back in like 2017, and not many people had really started talking about it yet because it was under the radar. It hadn't really been discovered. It was just freshly on like Amazon or something streaming. So I click on it because it was one of the recommended movies, and whenever that kind of format of film, mockumentary horror, it really has a lot of stereotypes and tropes that they typically follow. This one didn't have any of that. This one was like completely original and fresh. And there's something about predictability of these kind of films. And let me tell you guys, I couldn't predict what was going to happen next at any given time. Yeah. It was completely original, completely built around an atmosphere that was terrifying. And we talk about like, houses that become the main character. A lot of the times, like obviously we do see news coverage, we see people outside of the house, but about 80% or more of the movie takes place inside the haunt. And these people, the guys are all, trying to build this haunt at the Abaddon, and you just kind of see all around kind of like the atmosphere they're building. And to me, just like you guys, the main star of the movie was the clown. Does he have a name? I thought he had a name, and he called him something. And he has like a black and white outfit on.
God, what?
Why do I want to say it's Puddles?
Why you saying that?
I don't think he has a name.
He doesn't have a name? Oh, they started calling him something throughout the movie. I don't know. But just like you guys were saying, it was terrifying whenever they put him in this basement. So it was basically, the film is in a place called the Abaddon Hotel, for someone who hasn't seen this. And it's set up just like a house, even though it's a haunt. It's set up just like a old like house, hotel, boarding lodge or something. It has a basement. The basement is creepy as shit. Let's just be honest. It was a creepy ass basement. They put the clowns in this creepy ass basement, which was scary enough as it was. And whenever that one girl was sitting down halfway through the movie, and just like hanging out. I was like, oh, well, you're gonna be over there, and then this you're gonna be tied up, and then when the people come down, they're gonna have to walk past you guys, and you're gonna scream, and then the camera flies like does like shot where it's like going away, and then it comes back, and the clown they had set there on stage is staring
Oh yeah.
down. And the one time I jumped more than any other part of the movie is whenever they're at, I forgot what it was. It was like this dude was at I forgot the guy's name because it's been a couple weeks since I watched this, but um, he was like at the end of the stairs. And when he was at the end of the stairs, he like was standing there and turns. And when he turns, that clown, the guy we're talking about,
Looking.
is
Oh,
face to face with him. And it absolutely, okay, to be honest, I have never jumped so hard in a movie. Like I've
yeah.
seen so many horror movies. I have never been that startled by a shot. Completely out of the blue, unexpected. It was scary. It is truly, truly a horror movie. Like this is like scary stuff we're talking about. And to
Yeah.
be produced by a studio that's notorious for not necessarily making great movies. I mean, no shade, but it's not necessarily from a well-known studio. And this is kind of like their pride and joy. HellHouse. It's become an entire franchise because I think just like the three of us, people are watching this and they're seeing this and they're noticing all these like great things about it that was completely unexpected. No advertisement, there was no hype. We just turned it on one night and there it was. And that's exactly what people love about it is the unpredictability. And that being said, like it's beautifully done. I mean, it's just the atmosphere is just incredible.
I mean, well said. I mean, honestly, well said. There's nothing really I could say badly about this film. It even from the beginning to the middle to the end, I liked how they tied things in. I know in the beginning when they were doing the walkthrough, they were doing the first set of guests walking through the house, and I think it was the Sarah character ran through the hallway, and then the Joey, the guy that was actual physical human body by the fake clowns downstairs, ran through the hallway while the haunted house guests were walking through. That was actually leading to the end. You know what I'm saying? That was actually the ending, but the beginning of the end, however you want to look at it. And I loved how they tied that together because in the beginning, like Sarah ran upstairs and that girl looked over in the camera, the guy that was filming for the YouTube, and she looked and said, "Well, is that supposed to go on?" And it was. They were running from the basement because that was the beginning of the end, And I was like watching that, and then when it showed the end of Sarah running and those like oncoming like guests, I was like, "Holy shit, that was in the beginning!" Like it was just really well done. So many jump scary scenes. I get so excited about this film. And there's nothing bad I can say about this. And I loved all three of them. The first one, obviously, to me, is the best. But
Yeah.
the second one, I really enjoyed. The third one would probably be my least favorite, but I still enjoyed it. And I'm excited about the prequel that's about to come out. Or when I don't know if there's an official date yet, but I'm all ready for it. So huge fan of HellHouse LLC. I was telling Lax this, Tyler. I mean, all-time favorite is like I'm a huge Halloween fan, Scream franchise fan. But I'm telling you, HellHouse LLC is in my top 5. I mean, it's just a hidden gem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I myself really love Halloween like centered films as well, especially like haunts. Chris never likes haunts that much. And I'm always just like, I love haunts and stuff. So it's just like something about the atmosphere built around them, especially as a film. And have you watched House is October Built?
Yes,
Yes,
loved it.
that's
Yeah,
that's
I
Loved
didn't
it.
like it.
Chris didn't like it.
See,
But see, I think
I
that
loved
there's
it.
something about it that's like it's fun because what makes it really fun to me, I'm trying to like really put my finger on exactly what it is. So I'm not necessarily saying this is like great storytelling here, but there's just like an atmosphere it builds. There is a kind of like aesthetic to it that you can really respect because it's like so everybody like has went through a haunted house. You know what I mean? So we talked about like that movie Hellfest that came out a couple years ago. Not a great movie, but it still was fun. We have, Houses October Bill. Not a great movie, but it was fun. HellHouse LLC may be the pinnacle because you know what? It didn't just have a great atmosphere and it wasn't only just very fun, but it was a good story. And that's what really makes this great. One thing I will say, Mike, is I wasn't really a big fan of the second or the third one. There was something about the second and third
That's
one.
fair.
I know we're not like talking about that one necessarily in this episode, but there was everything I loved about the first one, the second and third kind of like took away. Like it instead of like
I
unpredictability.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything about the first one that made it unique and interesting and like unpredictable. The second one, I could spot the ending a mile away. The third one, the ending was really not that great either. And I think that the newest one that's a prequel did show great promise. I will say. I think
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
interesting. So we'll see. But
I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Because this movie managed to do the one thing that most horror movies try to do and always fail, legitimately scare me. I give this movie a 10 out of 10.
no,
I was same here. Now I'm not talking about 2 or 3, but just HellHouse LLC. It hits all levels. I mean, from no big name actors to middle grade budget film. I thought with everything they had to work with, I thought it was perfect. I just don't think there was a huge miss. I was terrified watching this movie, even rewatching this. I still get like the hairs on my neck will stand up just from like maybe somebody's like behind me. Like it feels really odd. And it's kind of like I feel like a kid. I sometimes cannot watch this by myself at night. Like I just can't with all the lights out. It's a creepy feeling. So me personally, I mean, I can't believe I'm rating it higher than Halloween movies because I love Halloween movies, but I'm not. I'm going to be weird again. I'm going to get a half series. I'm going to give it a 9.5 because I love it that much. And if I'm not going to rate Halloween 10, I'm not going to rate HellHouse LLC 10, but I do give this a 9.5, and that's my highest rating that I've ever given a scary movie.
wait, are you talking about the original Halloween?
No, just Halloween's in general.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the original
no,
Halloween was your favorite series, but you wouldn't rate it a 10.
no,
Like, wait,
no,
what?
no, just no, just Halloween's in general. Like I said, I think the highest rating Halloween God was probably the original second one. That's my favorite of all time. The hospital.
Yeah.
And I rated that a 9. So I'm rating HellHouse LLC a 9.5.
Nice. All right. Well, I would probably give. I mean, I'm right there with you guys on the HellHouse LLC. I'm a little lower on the rating. But overall, we all know that the three of us think this is absolutely fantastic. It's among some of our favorites and most unexpected films. So I would give it an 8. But that being said,
Solid.
it was I thought I was gonna walk into it giving it a 3. And I'm sure you guys thought maybe like, oh, I'm gonna give it a 3 or 4. It's probably not gonna be that great. And I'm pretty sure everybody is just that shocked that it's, an 8+ film. So
Yeah.
very fair ratings. Very good.
Yep. So that's a 27.5 for the score. The only thing, like, this movie, like I would say, managed to scare me. Every single horror film aims for that. Every single horror movie tries to do that. It tries to scare you as much as it possibly can. And for most horror fans, it doesn't work. It's either comes off really stupid or it comes off funny, or most of them they're just fun. Even though that some people are scared by them, the majority of regular horror fans are not scared by movies. So the fact that this movie managed to do that, it automatically gets, I mean, it's the one film, that's the one thing that I want a film to do. I want to put a movie on at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and not be able to sleep at night because of it. Like that is a good feeling for me. I know that people might find that ridiculous, but that is a good feeling. And it managed to do that. And that's the reason why I'm giving this such a high score.
Nice.
And just real quick,
I'm shocked by that still. 10 was crazy.
Oh yeah. And just a real quick, I wanted to add this with the Hell House because, like I said, I could talk about this movie all night. but it was almost like it was effortless on the scare. Like it's like they didn't try hard, but I was terrified. It just seemed like it smoothly went together, very effortlessly. Like it was well done. And I mean, like I can't say anything bad about it. I wish I could rate. I want to rate it a 10, but I've just never given a movie a 10. So like, it's just perfect to me. It really is. It's a great film.
Nice. That is HellHouse LLC. We'll have to see what comes next. What you got, Chris?
All right. So immediately, as soon as you chose this topic, or the wheel chose the topic for haunted houses, I had to go with one of my personal favorites, and it is the St. Francisville Experiment. And this was made in the height of found footage era. This was right after the Blair Witch Project came out. This was, I believe, in 2000 when the film was released, and it is about a group of not really like not actors. The movie is built around that, to where four people who are not actors are hired to go into this haunted house in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It's called the Myrtles Plantation. And they're going to document their experience of walking through this house and spending the night in it. And that's basically the plot of the film. It's a very simple plot. And the movie, at the beginning of it, now this is where it gets a little tricky, because there's actually technically two versions of this movie. And the version that I'm familiar with is the one that was released on the VHS, on the DVD, in theaters. And at the beginning of the film, it's got the producer he's the writer of the film. He comes up and he says, "We took these actors, we gave them equipment, and we said, go inside the house. You're locked in for 24 hours. Everything that you are about to see is 100% real." And that's what really sold it on me whenever I was growing up. I mean, I absolutely love the Blair Witch Project. It was one of those movies that scared me as well, like Hill House did. There's still moments of Blair Witch that terrify me to this day. But it was around that era when I watched it, and they said that it was real. They were claiming that everything that was happening was real. So I was already intrigued. I was hooked. And then the house itself is a very creepy house. And I know that if I was to go inside that house, I would be scared. And there would be a lot of things I didn't want to do. And so these actors definitely, well, I called actors, definitely sold it as a creepy and unsettling place. Um, Now the only thing is like I was saying, there are two versions of the film. And so one version is a PG-13 version, which is the one I'm familiar with. And these actors go into the house, they document what they see, and they try to cleanse the house. That's what they have to do. They're supposed to be there to cleanse the house. And during the time that they're there, you see 3 to 4 different types of paranormal activity sequences. And then they try to cleanse the house, and they are attacked by some unknown force, and then the movie ends. And then it tells you about the after effect, about what happened to them real quickly. And you're just led to believe that everything that you saw is real. And I like that about the film. I thought that was all entertaining to me. And we chose, I wanted everybody else to see it. It's not a known movie. It's not a known movie at all. And so I wanted you guys to see this, to see what you guys think. And I pulled up the film on Tubi to watch it. And all of a sudden there's this whole new entrance, like intro to the film. And I thought, what the hell is this? This isn't the movie that I watched. It's completely different. I said, that's the same guy. It's a different intro. And because I knew that immediately, because I had seen this movie so many times. And there's entirely different scenes throughout the whole movie. The ending is completely changed in the PG-13 version. So the version you and Mike watched on Tubi is completely different. And I really wish you guys could have seen the PG-13 cut, because I think it's a more superior version of, like, I really like both films, but I think because of the PG-13 film, there's a few things that they take out of the movie that tightens everything together. Like, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of dialogue that I think was unnecessary in the extended cut, and they take a lot of that out, and then they added a lot of stuff that was more theatrical based, if that makes sense, theatrical made versions. And I actually liked that version more than I liked the version on Tubi. Like I was just so confused at how many different at the different cuts of this film, and you get an R-rated cut with more. They take scenes out that I was expecting to watch these scenes. And I was like, "Where's this scene at? The scene's not there." I specifically remember this scene happening. Like I thought I was going crazy for like the first like 30 minutes of the movie. I was like, "What movie am I watching?" But I wanted to know what you guys thought of it, and I'm hoping you guys liked it. I know that version is completely different than what I'm used to, but I hope this isn't. I hope it doesn't kill your all's thoughts of the film because you watched a different version than I have.
How do you before I even say anything about that, I was kind of curious, like, is the version that you watch, is it super out of print, or are you still gonna get it somewhere? Like, is it still like
Well, the version I have is a DVD version. It is. Let me get this down here real quick. So it was put out by Trimark Home Entertainment.
Mhm.
That was the company that released it on DVD and the VHS as well. That's the version I'm familiar with. And I know that there is a different DVD of it now, and I think it's the same company that made that has the Tubi version of it. So I don't know. I think this, if you get this copy here, like the blue background with the house in it, I think that's the one that's the PG-13 cut, and that is the one that I recommend watching. I like it better, but I I I I like the one on Tubi just because it's different from what I'm used to. So it's cool to see these extra scenes and these different versions tied to a film that I've already really liked to begin with. But what do
Yes.
you guys think? What do you guys think of the movie without going into the whole different cut version? Because you have only seen the R-rated cut.
Yeah, so the version of the movie that I seen, I can only speak to that. I do want to see the version you have because it sounds like it may be, I may like that one better. But see, the thing is, if that you watch this right before, we have, high speed internet, we have access to all of this, modern technology. We've seen so much more, ghost story wise. Found footage has been exhausted by this point. So taking that into account, I'm watching this, many, many years after. And I could see how it worked back in the year, like, 2000, how that would have been an exciting like time to watch this. So it probably holds a lot of value for you that I couldn't see in it. Because for me, what it was, it seemed like one of those, just like I said, it seemed like one of those movies I would have probably enjoyed, like the Blair Witch Project. I kind of enjoyed that movie when I kind of make my mind go back to, a time before high speed internet and people thinking it was real and it actually happened, and getting like, the letters from, all the kids, wishing their mom well. So like knowing like the lore that surrounded that time that the St. Francisville experiment came out, I can respect it, and I can see why people would like it. To me, watching it this year, it didn't have any of that charm at all that I feel like it may have had one at one point. I felt like it was watching a very dry version of like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters. It just kind of seemed like, I've seen it done better. I've seen it many times before. It just didn't feel like a film that was aging very well, like I should say. Like I feel like it was a film that if you watch it fresh off, the cutting room floor, and it had just been finished, that'd be like, oh my God, this is insane. But today it doesn't work. It just doesn't feel like it holds up.
I will say this: there's more stuff that happens in the PG-13 version.
Really.
Yep.
It seemed like it moved very it's the version I watch, it moves like super, super slow, it feels like. And it's not a long movie.
Yeah.
It's like a little over an hour and 15 minutes, right? And it's like it's literally like an episode of Ghost Adventures with 15 minutes added on, but it feels like it goes on for like 4 hours. Like it's just like, oh my gosh, we get it. I don't know. Maybe it's just go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Oh no. I am going to agree with you both. I think I like the film, but I think I would have liked it more if I would have watched it kind of like similar with Lax. Maybe right around the Blair Witch, or maybe 10 years ago. I thought the film was a little slow. it took a while for it to lead up to anything. It's basically just a bunch of people running around the house trying to find clues or do paranormal investigations. I could not stand the one character, the what was her name? Was it Ryan?
Ryan.
She was Ryan. Okay, she was absolutely annoying. But the ending was cool. Finally something happened. The chair getting thrown in the attic was like, it kind of made you jump. I jumped at that part because I wasn't expecting it, because it was kind of slow leading up to that point. You're like, oh shit, that chair just got thrown. The cool little like finds, like the one individual, I forgot the guy's name, but he went into the closet and found the little door, and he found like another hallway, but basically another addition to the home. I thought that was cool. But I thought it was missing something, or maybe I just watched this film at the wrong time. So I will agree with Tyler on that part. I think maybe I would appreciate it more, or maybe I need to see the other film to really, really like it. But it was just okay. It was one of those movies. It's kind of forgettable, but maybe I just need to see more of it.
100% agree. I mean, if I think back to it, I was on paper. See, on paper, it seems like it's going to be great. So, like, if you just like read the plot, or if you just like see the characters that's going to be in it, like, it seems like it's going to be a really interesting, riveting, intriguing film, or it's going to be scary as hell. You're thinking, like, when you read, like, when you hear about like what it's about, or just like hearing Chris set it up, it sounds like it could be like HellHouse LLC. Like, it's like, oh my god, this is going to be it could be terrifying. Then you actually get there, and I just feel, and the way it was shot also just was very, like, I guess you would say it's just ugly. I don't know, like the way it was shot just seemed very, very. And I've seen a lot of shot on video things, but this really just seemed like it was somebody picked up like the camcorder and just with their friends said like, "Hey, we have a couple hours to kill," kind of thing. I don't know.
And that's what it's supposed to be, because these people aren't actors. They're supposed to be hired to go in there with their equipment. They don't know that they're given at the beginning of the movie. They're given, techniques of how to use the equipment because they've never used it before. So they're not supposed to. Yeah, he tells me like, this is an EMF detector. This is this. This is this. This is how you use it. And that's why it's supposed to be where they don't know anything about what they're doing. They're just hired to go in there. So that's not somebody, they're not actors acting to the sequences of what's going on. And I think that's what makes it more real. But
so it was real, you said? Like telling them.
Well, here's a little bit about the making of the film. So the movie was actually made to be 100% real. It was these people were not actors, and still to this day, some of them are not actors. And they were hired to go in, and they were going to spend the night, and they were going to document their cases, and they was going to be given, a clue to like which rooms to go into and explore. And there was a few things that was going to be rigged to happen, and they were going to capture their legit reaction to these things. And there was a lot of issues on set between the producers, stuff like that happened, that made this movie not as good as what it could be. And I mean, I love the film, and I don't know if it has to deal with nostalgic to it or like the time that I watched it, but I think it is a really well made movie to get that realistic tone of a film. And I mean, maybe it could just be the version that I'm watching too, the original PG-13 cut, that helps. But when I turned on Tubi and I saw the different cut, like there's a scene in the Tubi version that has a campfire scene where they're talking to this old man at the campfire. And it's about a 5-minute scene of him telling a story about the house and the property and family there. And then it's a weird too, because he's like, if you go down to this house and snoop around, you're all damn fools. And it's just that scene didn't work. But that entire scene is not in the PG-13 version. So when I saw that, I was like, what is this? And so, I mean, it's weird to think that they would have that in the cut, because it doesn't work. It doesn't fit. I think the PG-13 version It knew what it was doing. Like the editor knew what they were doing. It took out all the stuff that wasn't necessary and made a more tight, creepy film for it. And I really want you guys to see that version. But I was so intrigued by this other cut because it was nobody knew about it. Like it's not online or anything like that saying, hey, there's two versions of the film. Come see both of them. I was like, what's going on with this? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to the writer of the film. So I got in contact with the writer. I was talking to him about, what was going on, and he was unaware that there was two cuts. He had no idea. And he said, as far as I know, there's only one cut of the movie. And so he said, give me a day, give me a call, and we will discuss this film. So I called him up. I talked to him. He gave me a lot of information about the making of the film, with the issues with the producers, issues with just trying to get the movie made. And I really want to go into those details, but here's the thing, guys. The writer of the film has also talked about being interested in doing our podcast, being on it and talking with us about the making of this film. And he's very excited about wanting to do this. And I don't want to get everybody's hopes up because there's a possibility, of it not happening, like everything. But he seems interested. He wants to talk about it. He wants to explain all the details about the making of the film. So I think I would like to save all the behind the scenes stuff for that, if that happens. And then if it doesn't end up happening, we can always talk about it afterwards or whatever. But I think it'd be really cool to have him on the show and to hear his take and his experiences with working on the St. Francisville experiment.
I think that'd be a good idea. I really do.
Yeah,
And
I think
because the way you're talking about it, Chris, it's just like everything you're saying didn't translate to me. Like I didn't get any like the idea of these are just hired people. They're not actors. They didn't know how to use the equipment. They had to be told. It makes it more of like an interesting, I feel like, behind the scenes story now, than even this film. Because if somebody's just like, okay, if somebody's just casually watching Tubi one night, or somebody's just finds a DVD at a thrift store or something somewhere, and they just pop it in, I just feel like today it didn't age very well. But the St. Francisville experiment really thrives, it seems like, maybe on the fact that it's behind the scenes story, the way it was shot. So, and it sounds like you have a lot of stories as well, that he's already told you. So hopefully he can make it on, because I think that would make even a more interesting conversation about it. Because the thing is that there's probably a lot of things that's happened that we don't even know about. So
yeah,
I'm down.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, hopefully he can do it.
Yeah, so I'm curious at what you all have a rating for it, because like I said, you all are coming in only with one version. But me having nostalgic to it, me knowing the two different versions and being able to compare them, I'm going with the version I'm more comfortable with, the one that I like the most, which is the PG-13 cut, and I give the film a 6 out of 10.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. I guess I feel like I'm kind of being unfair because I haven't seen the other version. So if you're describing this as completely different, then I guess maybe we could come back and rescore this after I see this. But the version that I saw was a little slow. There were some good points, good parts in it, but it just kind of left you hanging, I felt, wanting more. So I gave it same thing. I gave it a 5. I wasn't great, wasn't terrible. So, but it's still an unfair score. If there's another version out there that's the true version, I don't know which one's the right one to watch or not to watch, but I gave it a 5.
So based off of what I've seen, I'm gonna rate it off the version that I watched, in hopes that maybe, like you said, if we ever get to see the other version or maybe hear the story of the other version, I may enjoy hearing about that more. But just based off of the film, without anything, no disclosure, no preconceived notion of what I think it might be, just what I saw, I would have to give it, to be fair, I would have to give it a 3 out of 10, and that's just because not knowing the story about the actors, or not knowing how to use the equipment, or knowing about a different version, just seeing the film itself, that's what I would probably that's where I would stand with it. Again, watching this back whenever Chris had seen it, I may be right on line with Chris, because I loved whenever I first watched Blair Witch, whenever before technology is what it is today. When I was really young, I watched Blair Witch and it scared me. So I understand like where Chris is coming from with this 100%. I'm right there with you. It's just now. It's just that it just so happens that I seen it, way after the fact, and it just didn't work the way it probably once did. And that's like a shame for it, but like that's where it is with me right now.
Yeah, so I will give you guys the DVD copy that I have. I will let you all watch it. And if your all's rating changes, we can talk about it on a future episode. And
That's fair.
And yeah, so we'll go from there.
It actually goes down.
Base everything down.
It's like it's actually now a 1.
I rated it a 5. It's actually a 0.5. It's terrible.
That's the worst alternate version I've ever seen of a film. It's almost as it wasn't even real.
I honestly think you guys will like the other version better.
All right, fair enough. Where are you at again with your where are we at with the points on this one?
I gave it a 6. Mike gave it a 5, and you gave it a 3. So that is 11, 14.
You lose.
Loser. I'm just playing.
Wait, what did Mike get again? I think he's the winner, isn't he?
Yeah, he had like a 27.5 or something.
Jesus, wow.
So there is only a total of 30 points that you can get. And out of 30 points, HellHouse LLC has gotten a 27.5. That's pretty damn good.
That's the highest score I've ever given.
Yeah, really. I mean, honestly, it's well deserving.
I mean, it should have been Suspiria, but whatever.
And it's strange too, because this is the first episode that a movie has gotten a 10 out of 10 rating from someone. And now in the same episode, there's 2 separate films that both have a 10 out of 10 rating.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's crazy. It's strange. But that makes Mike the winner. So Mike is the lucky one. So whenever we spin the wheel for our next topic for next episode, we get to take out the haunted house. Mike gets to replace the haunted house topic with a new topic of his choice. All right, guys, we are back and we're ready to spin the wheel. Originally on the wheel, we had the House of Horrors, which is a topic we just did this episode. And Mike was the winner with a 27.5 rating for HellHouse LLC. He has chosen to replace the topic of House of Horrors with possession films. So now on the wheel, we have a possible 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 topics to choose from. We will spin the wheel and see which one is going to be the next episode's topic. We have to choose from ghost stories, vampire flicks, found footage, possession flicks, clown town, films from the year you were born, dark comedy horror, werewolves, and shark attack. So a lot of really cool topics there that we could possibly have. And Tyler, go ahead and spin the wheel.
Here we go.
Here we go, fellas.
What's it gonna be? Found footage. That's kind of crazy because we just chose 2 films that were found footage.
I know. So we're gonna be swimming in found footage.
This is exciting. That's a good topic.
Yeah, it's a really good topic.
Nice. Well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in this week. We have some really, really cool stuff lined up, don't we, guys?
Yes,
we do. And not only do we have what I was talking about of the possibility of having the writer on from St. Francissville Experiment, we have some other cool things we're not really going to discuss right now. We are working on, and it is really, really big, guys, really big news. And we cannot wait to share this information once we have everything a little more concrete.
Yes. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening. Feel free to subscribe, comment, everything. Interact with us, let us know rather what you think of our episodes. And we're excited. So peace. We'll see you.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.